chalk and cheese between the airbrush as it was before to the way it is now, simply by cleaning the nozzle. Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies, and I'm going to be talking about airbrushing. Now this is going to be a quick tutorial on how I prepare an airbrush after use. So I'll go through some of the basic steps and show you how I go about preparing my airbrush. Alright, so you can see I've got my airbrush in a little holder here. Now just to simulate, I'll put in some of this black paint that I've already mixed before and we'll spray it through. So this is just X1, which is a Tamiya acrylic paint. It's one of the hybrid acrylics, so it can also be thinned with lacquers. Now, how or what sort of liquid you use for cleaning your airbrush will depend on what sort of paint you use. This one is quite easy to clean up, simply because it can be cleaned up quite easily with lacquers, but I find that lacquer thinners is a good medium even for cleaning up after water-based paints. So what you can do is, with this one, after you finish spraying through, you can rinse with water, and then after that I like to clean it with a stronger chemical such as lacquer thinner or even airbrush cleaner, which has probably got a stronger mix of acetone and toluene within inside. Okay, so let's do the first part of the simulation. I've got the black paint in there. Let's say I've got my surface here that I'm going to spray on. Okay, so as you can see at the moment, feels a little bit low in pressure. That could be from this particular airbrush. Also has a MAC valve, so let's open it up and see if that improves it. Okay, it seems to be blocked at the moment. So you can see how sparse this spray pattern is. Feels like it's either nozzle blocked or it's too low in pressure. Okay, so that's where I'm going to clean it up. You can see how I don't have a lot of control here. Okay, so that's our simulation. So let's clear this out. We'll flush this out. I'm going to just spray the remainder of it over here. So we'll get rid of as much paint as we can. So you can either do what I'm doing here, I'm just spraying it out, or you can just pour it out into a container. And you'll see down the paint well at the moment, or the little cup, how there's less and less paint. And that's just about empty now. So we're going to flush that out. I'm just going to go straight to lacquer thinners. Okay, and what I like to do is we'll pour some lacquer thinners in the cup. I've got my brush here as well, and I like to use my brush as a guide for the thinners to flow down. Okay, so I've just got that resting up against the side of the bottle, and as the liquid touches the top of the brush, it'll flow naturally down the brush and comes straight into the cup without any drips. Okay, so I'll just use a brush it around here. Okay, paintbrushes are really good because they generally got quite a stiff yet soft bristle, so you'll be able to just brush that all the way around without too much trouble. Clean off all the residue. Okay, and from there I'll just get a cup here and we'll just pour that out. Okay, and then we can spray. Okay, so that was the stuff that was left inside. Okay, so there's still colour coming through, which we don't want. Alright, so that's empty now. We'll put in some more thinner. Okay, Okay, so it looks pretty clear in there now. Give it another bit of a swoosh with the brush. Again, spray, and we'll see. Once this comes out clear, we can be pretty certain. It's got a bit of a spitting action, so I think this nozzle is a little bit blocked. All right, so it's clear now. All right, so that's pretty much the rinsing over. Now the thing that appears to be the problem is it's probably a nozzle around here, which needs attention. So after a while, you can get a build-up. It's a bit like a plaque build-up, I guess. A thin film of paint, all the residue sort of gets stuck inside the nozzle, and that probably needs a little bit of attention now. Okay, so let's just unhook the air supply. Now we're going to get a bit of hissing because I don't have my quick release. So I'll just let that escape. So while that's happening, I'll just show you what I'm going to do here. So we're just going to pull this apart. Now, generally to pull apart your airbrush, you just undo the back handle, and this will let you get to the needle. Okay, there's a locking nut there. Okay, you just have to turn it, and once it's loose, the needle should be able to be moved in and out. Okay, so the needle is the item that is in the nozzle and controls the airflow. You can see that, actually you won't see it now because I've unlocked it. And if I lock it up again, you'll see that the needle moves with the action of the trigger. Okay, so that's opening the nozzle and allowing more paint to go through as you pull it back. Okay, so basically we need to take out this needle. As we take it out, we need to be very careful that as it comes to the end, we take it out straight so that there's no damage to the needle, and you'll see once I pull it out, you see how sharp it is there. Okay, so I'll get that out there, and then we're left with this part. Okay, so now we're going to undo the nozzle cap. Okay, so there's a nozzle cap, and then we've got the nozzle cover. And now I'll just release this so we can get to alright, let's move this out of the way and get some more room. Okay, so we've got our needle there, got our various parts. Let me just focus that so it's easier to see. Okay, so they're the main items apart. We've got a cap, we've got a cover. Now the nozzle here is the area that I want to pay quite a bit of attention to because that's the part that's probably blocked up a bit. And then also the needle, it's probably got a little bit of plaque on here after I sprayed it. Now I can see a little bit of black on it because we just sprayed the black through it. And I'll show you what I do from here. All right, so basically I've got a little bit of paper here. This is just to wipe off any dirt and such. Alright, so I'm going to get a little bit of my thinner. So this is a lacquer thinner I've been using before to spray through. I've got a cotton wool bud. Okay, so it's just soaked there. Let's see where I'm going to put that. I'll put that there. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently clean this surface, right, just by rubbing it with a cotton wool bud. And while doing this, you just need to be very careful. And you notice that I'm moving in the direction of the needle, so it's almost like I'm sharpening it. So there's less chances of me damaging the needle by doing this. And as I've done this, I'm not sure you can see, but there's just the slightest amount of residue of the black which has appeared on that cotton bud, which means there was a bit of residue on here. So that's all cleaned off now. Okay, so that's on the bud. And then on this paper, I'm just going to gently rub this along here. And you'll probably see, just on the tissue here, how it's a little bit wet from the thinner. So that's removing and polishing the tip. And again, as you can see, I'm dragging it down from the tip, so there's less chances of bending it. You still have to be very careful when you're doing that. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do with the needle. Next thing would be to clean the nozzle cap. Now to access into here, you either use some very small brushes, which you can get specifically for this. Some of those brushes are quite stiff though. So what I prefer to use is something a bit softer, but quite rigid, which is a skewer. Now to get into here, basically, I'll need to sharpen that. And I sharpen that with a knife like this. Okay, so basically just sharpen it like a pencil. Okay, so I'll show you just a little bit here, but it's going to put all these shavings everywhere. So that's basically all I'm doing, this motion. And then I'll continue sharpening it off camera, just so I don't get all these shavings everywhere. Now obviously if you've got really thin skewers, then you won't need to sharpen it so much. Just want to get it to a point so that it replicates the needle angle, and you'll be able to get it all the way inside here. Okay, so with this, I'm going to wet it with a bit of this thinner that's on this cotton wool bud. You could also dip this into the thinner directly, but you only need a little bit on the outside, and then we'll gently push this in until it comes out the other end. Okay, because sometimes you've got plaque that's stuck around there, and that's pretty hard to see, so I use my mag visors and I'll get closer to see what's going on. Okay, so I need to get pretty close, and then as we have a look, you can see that there's quite a bit of plaque there. And this part is the area that goes around the nozzle. So that's where the airflow is passing through the nozzle and pulling through the paint via suction. So if this is blocked, then this is going to reduce your paint flow, as in your airflow, I should say, and then of course your paint flow as well. Now, as I pull that out, you may be able to see that was quite dirty. Okay, let's see if I can zoom in. Let's see if I can get to that. You see that there? So that was perfectly clean before. And you've got this area of colour. So it may not look like much, but I mean, it's a very small hole anyway, so anything that comes off is going to make a difference. Okay, so that was just concentrating on the hole. Now you want to concentrate on the insides of this as well. So I'm just going to spin this around as we approach the front. And I've got a little bit more that's come off. Okay, oh, end's getting a bit bent now, but there's a lot of stuff coming off. Let me just clean this off here. All right, so there's a bit there and a little bit of the end of the needle as well. Let's just do this to polish it up. Now you can get reamers for this as well. So I do have those reamers. So like this, my Green Stuff World make reamer like this. Basically it looks like a needle. Got the same angle as a needle, but it does have a flat section. So that flat section acts like a blade, and as you put it inside, it'll scrape away the paint. These are quite aggressive though, so you have to be very, very careful so that you're not actually pushing very hard. Otherwise you're going to enlarge the hole and your airbrush is not going to spray the same. Okay, so these are handy and they're great if it's fully blocked, because a bamboo toothpick won't be able to go through a fully blocked hole, but it's something that I wouldn't use for regular maintenance like this. So, but it's handy to have, because if you're in the middle of a job and you've got a full blockage, without one of these, you won't be able to get through a fully blocked nozzle. Okay, but you have to be careful when using those. Okay, so I'll continue using this skewer. All right, so now I've got the other side. All right, we'll just clean that off around here too. Now, as we look in there, we can see there's a little bit more residue. Okay, so we just want to make sure we clean it all off. And I mean, I can only see that because I'm wearing these mag visors. Some of you may have some better eyesight than me, but I find them very handy. Okay, so that's the cover, and it's all cleaned off. And so you can see how this bits here we've already cleaned out. And this from an airbrush that's been used consistently for a while and hasn't had one of these major cleans before. Okay, apart from that, we've got the cap here. And the cap doesn't really matter that much. The cap is basically to protect the end of the needle because the needle will be poking out. And you'll notice that some of these caps have got little cutouts in them as well. So the reason for the cutouts is allows you to use your airbrush very close to the surface without the air pressure getting very, very strong because there's no escape. So these are either cutouts or cross-section cuts meant to be there to allow the air to come out without over-pressurizing the paint. Okay, so some people take these off, but I always have them on. I think they're much more useful and practical on. Okay, so we've got our cotton wool bud here. Let's see if it fits in there. There we go. All right, and as we're rubbing it around, we pull it out and you can see how much colours come off this. Okay, so the more you keep these clean, the smoother the paint flow is going to be coming out of this. Because if you can imagine all this plaque being stuck on the inside of this cover, it's going to pick up more paint and it's going to create a turbulence. So your spray paint is not going to be that fantastic. Okay, so it's pretty much clean now. All right, so I've got those parts clean. The next part is I'm going to concentrate on this part, which is the nozzle. So there's a couple of different nozzle designs, but this is probably the most common. So this has a very tiny thread. And again, I need to get really close to it to see what I'm doing. Now these particular ones here have a couple of flats and you use a special spanner here for undoing. Now, basically what I do is I'll turn it just slightly like that. That's released it. Okay, and then I'll unscrew the rest with my fingers because there's less chances of any damage happening. Now you need to be very careful when you're taking this off because you don't want to lose it. Now there's a number of threads, so that's probably about 4 rotations, and that's come off. Now I'm going to have a closer look inside, and that's really dark on the inside, okay, which means there's a lot of plaque in there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is the same thing. I'm going to use this skewer and I'm going to sharpen it so that we can get in there. So this time I'm going to have to sharpen it quite a bit. Now spend your time sharpening it properly, because if it doesn't have a point, it's not going to go through. Oh, I think I've made it a bit too blunt, so I keep going. All right, now that's a bit of an odd shape, but let's see if it's going to go in. Probably won't. Nope. Okay, so it's only going part way. So I need to cut quite a bit more off. There's no point rushing these parts, so if you don't get it right the first time, just try again. It really is just like sharpening up a pencil. Now the reason I like using wooden skewers or bamboo skewers is because they're stiff, so they can go in there and actually remove stuck material, but it's not as hard as the actual original brass, so it's not going to actually gouge it out. All right, so let's try this out. Probably still not sharp enough. Because what we want to do is get it close to the end there, and it's only halfway down. Okay, so it's going to need quite a lot more. Okay, so I'm slowly whittling away. And basically the end, we want it to look like the end of the needle. Okay, and so that's what I've come up with now. So hopefully this goes all the way in, or very close to. Oop. Be careful not to lose that. Right, so we've got it to about here, which is pretty good. Okay, it'd be nice if I can get it even further, but for the moment, I think we're pretty happy. The very, very end bit, I could clear up with the needle itself. I'm just giving this a little bit more of a shave, see if I can get it a bit finer. Alright, so that's what I've got now. Alright, so again, I'm going to dip my cotton wool bud in some thinner. We'll coat the end of the little skewer so it can start working on that dried paint that's in there. Okay, so let's just pop this in, give it a bit of a spin. Okay, so as you can see, the skewer end has gotten quite discoloured. If I zoom in on that, you probably get a better idea. You see that was clean before. So it has removed quite a bit of paint. I mean, that's just a plaque on the inside, but it's so small in there that that is going to make a huge difference. Okay, so I'll keep at it because I think there's going to be still quite a bit in there. So a closer look. And what I might do is I'll wet up this paintbrush as well, and I'll pop the paintbrush in there. Okay, so that would have loosened off anything that was quite thick. Now I'm going to apply the paintbrush I've just dipped into the thinner. And I'll poke that inside. Give it a bit of a spin. Now that's only going up to about there. Let's have a look in here. Let's see if I can see through it. No, we can't see through it. So that was really jammed full of paint before. All right, let's see if we can poke it through the side. Right, so I'm going the opposite direction now. So you can see through it. No, it's still blocked. Right, so now I'm going to poke my needle through here. And we can see how there was a little ball of blue paint that was on the end. Okay, maybe I just see that on the end there, because there should be a shiny tip, but there's a bit of blue paint. Okay, so that's pretty much the rest of the plaque that we cleaned from the inside, and hopefully that's enough to get this spraying well. Okay, so let's just get that off. I'll use my little skewer here to remove that, because otherwise if I pull it through I might just suck it back in Alright, so we'll push that a few times. Just gently. Okay, so this is basically doing the same job as that reamer with the cut edges, but it's not going to be cutting into the end of that nozzle. So we don't want that hole in the end of the nozzle getting much bigger. Okay, so let's have a look now. So we'll see through it. Yep, we can see through it quite well. Still got some plaque in there, so what I might do, let's see if I can find, I'll empty this. So this is a little container I had that rinsed out black paint before. I'll pour a little bit of thinners in here. Pop our nozzle in there. Alright, so we've got the thinner that's gone all the way around now. Put in our skewer again. And have a look. Still pretty open. Put our needle through. Alright, so those come up quite nicely, I think. So I think at this stage, I'll reassemble. So the nozzle just needs to go back here. Now what you find is at the factory, these nozzles would have had some sealant applied to them. And the sealant, you probably hear it crack the first time that you undo it. Now sealant is very important because if that's not sealed properly, air will go back through this thread and you'll see it as bubbles coming up the cup itself. So if you do see that, then you just know that you need a bit of sealant there. Now the easiest thing for sealant is either Vaseline or what I've got here, which is a bit of lip balm. Okay, so you don't need a lot, you just need a little to coat the edge of the threads. So I'm just taking the slightest little bit that's on the end. And then I'm going to screw this back up. And as you screw it up, this lip balm is going to be spread all around the threads and it'll stop any leakage. Okay, so from here, it's finger tight. Okay, you have to be very careful here when you're tightening up the nozzle, because if you over tighten it, you can quite easily break it. Now let me see if I can zoom in here. Okay, so the nozzle's on the very end. It's actually sitting on that yellowy brass part. And we're going to use our spanner again. So we just need to locate the flat part. Okay, so there's a flat part. Now as I'm turning it, so you're turning clockwise. Now this is a point where it's just finger tight. And to tighten it, I'll just turn it like that. And that's enough. Okay, you don't want to turn it anymore, you're just going to break all the threads off that. Okay, so that's the nozzle back on. And now I'm going to put on the nozzle cap. Actually, this is a nozzle holder. And then the cap goes on there. Okay, and then finally we finish up with the needle. So the needle, I always put my finger here to guide it in, because if you hit the edges, you've got the chances of bending the needle. You don't want that. So very lightly guide it through. Once it hits the end of the nozzle, just give it a little bit of a gentle push like this, because again, if you push it too hard, you're going to enlarge the hole and it's just not going to spray as finely as it did. Okay, and we'll tighten up this little nut. Check the action. Okay, so this needle should be moving with your trigger action, which it is. And then we just screw it all back together. Okay, and that's it. That's all rebuilt. Now I'm going to reconnect the hose and we'll give it a shot and we'll see what it's like. Alright, so I've got my hose here. Just re-screw it up. Once this is screwed up, I have my compressor going again. Now if I had a quick release, then I wouldn't have to worry about turning off the compressor. Okay, so here we go. All right, so we've got all our stuff here. Now I'm going to use a bit more of that black paint and we'll see what the result is like. So hopefully it's better than it was before. Okay, let's pour that in there. All right, so we've got a bit of black paint. And got a bit of fresh paper here to spray on. Just wait until the airbrush compressor is fully pressured up and then we'll start spraying. Okay, I've got that there. Shouldn't take too long. Where are we up to? Yep, almost there. Actually, I might just test it on this one first. Already feels like a lot more air pressure. And a lot more control. Okay, so I'll show you on a clean piece of paper. Alright, so we've got all this, and then we've got the full pressure there. Okay, so that's a vast improvement to what we had before, and that's simply by cleaning out the nozzle. And that's something that you probably don't have to do every time, but after use, over several months, it could be a year since this one has actually been cleaned properly. You can see how different the spray pattern is. So when we first started, it felt like very low pressure. Even when I adjusted the Mac valve, it didn't make much difference. So if I screw this back to where it was, so that's reducing the pressure again, still feels like high pressure. Okay, so that's actually working the way it should be. And that's simply because of the plaque that was inside the nozzle, restricting the airflow. And without much airflow, it's not going to move as much paint. So you can see how much difference there is. Okay, and now we've got the full coverage there. There we go. So that is my demonstration on how to clean the nozzle of an airbrush. It's not particularly difficult, but as you can see, it's chalk and cheese between the airbrush as it was before to the way it is now, simply by cleaning the nozzle. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have any questions, please leave them below in the comments. Thank you.